Hello, everyone on YouTube. How you guys doing? Hello to my subscribers, especially. Thank you very much. Really appreciate people who subscribe to the channel, and it's been growing slowly but surely. The numbers are going up, which is great news. Just wanted to touch base with everyone for this week's installment. I had a 2-day book signing at C. Simpson's Used Bookshop in the West End Plaza in Broadheadsville, Pennsylvania. We really had a great time there. Met a lot of nice readers, met a lot of new people, but I also had a lot of repeat customers, which as an author means the world. People come back for more. You've done something right. At that particular event, I was featuring my two new novels, and the first one was Favored Son. Now, this one is a fantasy, and it's a really bizarre tale of a world that is filled with nothing but magic. It's like the opposite of this one, where magic is, you know, mythological, and, for those who do practice the occult, it's very difficult. Whereas in this world, it's the opposite. It's very easy. It's all over the place. Everything is magic. And there is a character who is a wastrel and a beggar and a thief and a con man who is the main hero. He's my anti-hero for this book. He doesn't want to be a hero, but he's being forced into a situation where he not only has to run for his life, but he's also got to be the hero. And that's like the last thing that he wants. And it's a very satirical, there's a lot of comedy in this. And yet at the same time, peril. Yes, there is fantasy peril in this. So it's a lot of fun. It's a bit of a romp of an adventure, and it did very, very well at the book signing. And I really can't thank people enough for coming out and checking out this new book. The other book that I was featuring, because I was able to finish 2 books this year. I'm hoping to be able to keep up that momentum. That would be fantastic. I have so many books in my head and down in my notes that it's driving me crazy. So I've got to get them out. Got to really, really get them out. And this is where I rely on my beta readers, my alpha readers, and I rely on my proofreader to really make sure that these are quality productions. That second book is Stellar Trespassers here. And this one is going back to the ship Ganges from the Crucible Spowers trilogy, Crew of Ganges, Veil of Strife, and Painful Medicine. This is the second trilogy. It's the first book of the second trilogy. And here it's hundreds of years later. So new crew, same ship, same AI, and their latest adventures, which begins the Invasion Spirals trilogy. So that was also nicely received, so I'm very pleased about that. People who had the trilogy, they snapped this up right away. So they had the first trilogy, they're grabbing this one. So that also, as an author, tells me a lot about how people feel about my work. Another book that did really, really well, and in some ways it surprised me. I thought I'd saturated the market. I've had a few of these book signings in my area, and but no, people cannot seem to get enough of Clockmaker. This is my first fantasy book. It's a standalone, and it's about a little clockmaker in a little narrow world, and he's threatened by a shadow, threatens to eat him. And so he runs away from home and ends up falling through the walls of his world and ending up in a whole new universe with completely different rules. And the shadow follows him. So now he's got to find his way back home and lose that shadow that's chasing him. So this book really performed well. People had come up to the booth saying they had heard of it. Like, oh, I heard of this one. Yes, yes, yes. I've, wow, okay, so people are talking about it. People are showing it off. And that's great news. There's nothing like word of mouth. It's much better than any other form of advertising. You can throw ads all over Amazon and Google. It's not going to do as well as people recommending the books in person. And that was something that I found to be a real truth this last time, because people were not only snapping this up for themselves, they were buying copies for others as gifts. It's always a compliment when your readers are buying your books to give to others. That, oh, that is an amazing thing. So this is what has been going on. It's been quite the thing. I've just recovered from the event because it was long. We had an after event party. We were doing, we had music, we had mead. All right. We had friends over and fans and people who really enjoyed the work. Would like to actually make that kind of like a regular thing. I think that should be a regular thing rather than a spontaneous thing. So that's something to keep in mind for the future. In any case, a lot of really interesting things happened there. We had one reader who had read Clockmaker, and he had actually picked it up because he saw the cover of it in Mike's book reviews here on YouTube. And he was just like, wow, I think I'm going to check that out. He did, and he wrote me telling me that it had the best ending of any fantasy book he'd read, which is a huge compliment. He drove for hours to meet me at this event. He came all the way out, and I was shocked. I was very surprised. I was so glad to meet him, and he bought everything. And I also signed his copy of Clockmaker that he enjoyed so much. And I want to thank you, Alex, for doing that. Thank you so much. It was Alex Spitzer. He came out and he joined us, and we ended up chatting, having a really good time, really good conversation. And it's so vital. See, that's one of the things about book signings that's so important to authors. It's not just that these people are coming out to purchase your books and to, want your signature on the books. You get to talk to the readers. You get to actually communicate with them, have conversations about other things. And then you get to find out more. What do they like about the genre of books that you're making? What are the things they're kind of sick of? I found a couple of people who were saying that they felt that science fiction had become very formulaic. It's all formulated now. It's everything's faster than light. Everything is time travel. Everything is, where's the other things going on? And one of the things they appreciated about Crew of Ganges is the fact that it's a generation ship. It's a slow boat. We don't go faster than light in that. And so it's all about the journey as opposed to the destination. And quite honestly, Ganges does not have a destination. It has an endless mission. So it's nothing but the journey. It's all about the journey. Internally, externally, it's all there. So that's something that is considered unusual today, which I think is a real shame. I like generation ships. Whether it's from Heinlein's Orphans of the Sky, or it's from Gene Wolfe's Litany of the Long Sun. I love them all. I even like Starlost, as odd as that was, and, it really didn't do well in the ratings back in the 70s. Starlost was revolutionary, which is probably why it didn't do well in the ratings. A lot of people were used to Star Trek, and they didn't understand what they were looking at. And what they were looking at was the Ark, which was a generation ship. And people were confused. Why are there farmlands here? Why are there cities in here? Why are there forests in here? It's a spaceship. Yeah, when you have generations living in a massive vessel, that's exactly what you need. So it's very unusual. You have a lot more going on inside the ship than outside, which is very true of most generation ship stories. I like to mix it up a little bit. Crucible Spiles was a very internal story, whereas Stellar Trespassers is not. So I'm kind of going back and forth here between the themes, but it all takes place in a generation ship, and I think people are really wanting something other than let's zip around the galaxy like we're going to the supermarket. No, let's make sure that space is dark, endless, vast, and that things take time. Now, I am taking some liberties in this second volume, but Ganges itself is not. And I think that's very important, and I'm going to be maintaining that. You also, you got to think about, moving faster than light in a ship that's designed to terraform planets, which means it needs a crew of millions, not a few hundred, not a few thousand, millions of crew. That kind of a ship, that kind of mass, going faster than light, I don't know if I'd trust that. It just sounds, oh, that's a disaster waiting to happen, and not the kind that's an exciting story. It's a kind of bang, and it's all gone. So I'm avoiding that. So I think just having some unusual aspects, the culture in Ganges is also very unusual. It's not like the cultures here. It's not really based on the current cultures we have, except very loosely, very, very loosely. A lot of their history is actually about the ship and not about where they came from. No one is pining for Earth. They're in the ship, which is where they want to be. So that's a very different feel when it comes to science fiction. When it comes to fantasy, it seems my work has hit something of a button there. No elves, no dwarves, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Tolkien and all that and whatnot, but at the same time, there's too many copies of that out there. How many people have books out there where the elves are the same, basically, as Tolkien elves? I wanted to avoid that whole thing, so there are no elves in any of my fantasy books. I want to look for things that are more unusual, things that are unique. And where they aren't unique, they're in a very unique setting. So Clockmaker is definitely that. It is a very strange, almost psychedelic romp in the fantasy world. And that's this one here. And then when it comes to Favored Son, there are some, there are some of the old tropes, manticores and dragons and things like that are mentioned. But the setting is very strange, where people are going to angelic realms and demonic realms, and the only real difference is how they look. Uh, and the whole idea of people being able to cast spells with their will through enchanted stones embedded on them, that also seems to be striking a chord with people. And yet you still have the downtrodden, you still have the aristocracy, you still have some of the problems that we have today. We have those who have a lot of power and a lot of money and a lot of people who do their bidding. And then you have the average person who is usually under their boots. And here's a guy who's under the boots of even the average person, and how he has had enough of being hunted and rebels. So there's a bit of that. Stellar Trespassers is bringing some unique viewpoints. And again, I'm hoping that this is nicely unique for science fiction. I also do not believe in the humanoid alien. I just don't. You're not going to convince me that if there's sentient life on Tau Ceti 4, it's going to look anything like us. It's not. It's not going to look anything like us, and we're going to barely be able to understand them, and they're barely going to be able to understand us. And that's a real issue that we are ignoring every time we have another show or another book where the aliens look just like us, but maybe with green skin or blue skin, or, maybe they have stripes and some fins. No, no, no. That's not the case. I really don't think that's the case. I think that alien life forms are going to look so strange, we might not even know what we're looking at. And so we're not going to be able to understand their point of view. They're not going to be able to understand our point of view. So what's going to happen? What happens in such situations? And one of the first rules of that is never, ever assume they're going to think like us. Because they're not going to think like us. They had a very different path. They have a very different world. They're not going to think like a human being. And so these are the ideas that I put into my books. I was thanked for making certain characters very complex and bringing some philosophy into both my science fiction and fantasy. And I'm very touched that people noticed. I really am. And I am grateful. I am humbly grateful. And I only hope that my future works will continue to excite people. And again, I rely on my beta readers for that. Most specifically, if they're excited, I'm pretty sure other people are going to be excited because they have not led me astray yet. So if you get a chance to, all of these books here, they are available on Amazon. And if you want signed copies, you can contact me directly. And that can be done through galatastudios@gmail.com. And you can ask, and I will sign them and ship them out to you. I do take PayPal and whatnot, so it's one of those things you got to do. I know some people don't like PayPal these days, and some people don't like this or that. If it works, I'm going to use it. And it works, and it works very well for me. So, I'm going to stick with what I know. And if I don't like the policies of a company, well, I'll just take what I don't like about it and then use metaphors in science fiction and fantasy to say why. There we go. That's my platform. Voila. All right, folks. In any case, I've got to get running. I've got a bunch of other things to do today, including audiobook recordings. Yes, they are in progress, and we're working on them. And it's sounding good. It's sounding good. So Crew of Ganges will be coming out first, followed swiftly by Clockmaker. And I will have that ready for you. And I'll let you know here when those become available. So hang in there. They're coming. And I will see you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Please do. It really helps me out. All right, folks. Take care, and I'll see you next week.